Hey guys, hope y'all are doing well. It was good to see a lot of you at church on Sunday. Hope you had a good time getting to be with your friends and see all the families at church and get to sing songs and hear about the Word of God. You might notice that I'm holding the camera today. Well, there's a good reason for that. The good news is the Mr. Clayton's Corner videos have reached international viewers. And for those of you that don't know what international is, that means people in other countries have started to watch the video. That's amazing. Now, the only problem with that is my camera assistant, she got wind of that and she thought, ooh, that means maybe that she gets more money to help out, which isn't the case. So for a little bit here, we're going to try with me holding the camera, see how it goes. And I was talking to some smart people who know about YouTubing and things, which I really don't. And they said I need a selfie stick. And I can't figure out what that is. I looked all over the place and found a bunch of sticks in the woods, and none of them seemed to work on my phone. So if you know what a selfie stick is, let me know, all right? So let's go ahead and jump into the verse from last week. We had two individuals reach out and said, hey, we want to learn the verse and say it for the video this week. So here is Miss Scarlett and Mr. Nathan doing an excellent job with the verse.
John 15:20. Remember the word that I said to you. A servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they kept my word, they will also keep yours. John 15:20.
Great job, guys. I like the setting of the front porch. You know, next time when you do it from the front porch, have your mom flip the camera around to make sure we get the shot of your dad sleeping in the rocking chair. I think everybody would love to see that. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the lesson for today. As if you've been watching the past several videos, you know that we've spent some time talking about some lessons from the Sermon on the Mount. So we're going to move out of that today, and we're going to pick up a story from Matthew that comes shortly after the Sermon on the Mount, but it's about the sea. So this lesson today comes from Matthew chapter 8, verses 23 to 27. So let me go ahead and read that for you. It says, "And when he got into the boat, his disciples followed him. And behold, there arose a great storm on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by the waves. But he was asleep. And they went and woke him, saying, Save us, Lord, we are perishing. And he said to them, Why are you afraid, O you of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. And the men marveled, saying, What sort of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him?" So what we have here is just another very, very short story. Just to summarize it, Jesus and his disciples are in the boat. They had just finished teaching some people and performing a few more miracles. Jesus performed some miracles, and they decided to jump in a boat to go somewhere else. And on their trip, a big storm came up. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever been in a boat during a storm, but I've been in a boat. I've been in a boat on some storms, and I've been in some boats in some pretty rough water. And I know firsthand that it can be kind of scary if you're in water, especially rough water, during a storm or like in the ocean or something like that. And just a couple of examples that I thought would be good to share with you. I remember one time I was on the Shenandoah River, which is just west of here in Western Virginia. And a big rainstorm came up, and we were canoeing, and a big wind and a big thunderstorm and heavy, heavy rain came up. And even though we had been in the river for most of the day, and the water wasn't that deep, it kind of got scary when the rain was coming down so hard, the water was filling the canoe, and the wind was whipping, and it could be kind of scary. I had another time where my dad and I we were down in the Outer Banks, and we rented ocean kayaks. And basically what an ocean kayak is it's something what's a kayak? but you sit on top of it. You don't sit down in it, and you take it out on the ocean. And the way it's designed is if the wave crashes on you, then the water just rolls right off and it doesn't sink your kayak. Well, the only tricky part to using an ocean kayak is if you get turned sideways in the wave, it'll flip you over. And I got pretty good with it. I figured it out. But I will tell you, one time I got turned a little bit sideways, and that wave was so powerful, it flipped me over before I could even try to get my boat straight. So the power of water is a real thing. And I think what the disciples were afraid of in this lesson is they were out in a boat. They were probably far offshore. The water was probably deep. And the boat they had was probably not really nice boats like we have today. It was probably wooden, handmade. Who knows how big it was. But we can see in the story here that they became scared. And rightly so. I mean, it's very scary to be on the water when there's a big storm. But Jesus here, he says, why are you scared? Do you not have faith that I'm going to be able to protect you? Whoop, spiderweb. Do you not have faith that I'm going to be able to protect you? And he spoke to the waves. He said, he spoke to the wind and the waves. And suddenly, it all stopped. So I want to teach you a word today. And I know a lot of you are going to be real shocked when I actually can tell you the definition of this word, but it's a Latin word. And yes, sometimes I am smarter than I look, but the word is omnipotent. And it's a Latin word. It's two words. Omni, which means all or together, and potent, which means powerful or strong. Now, don't get that confused with just potent by itself. Potent by itself is like, sometimes if you cut an onion and it smells really, really strong, you might say it's potent. Or sometimes perfume can be really potent. Or sometimes, if you go a few days without taking a shower, I know some of you can smell kind of potent, and that's not the kind of potent we're talking about. The potent here is powerful or strong. Well, God is omnipotent. What that means is he is all powerful. And so in this lesson here, or in this story, we see a perfect example of how God is all powerful over everything. And in this case, he's all powerful over the wind and the waves. And so, even though the disciples were scared, and trust me, if I was in their shoes, I would be scared too. Because it's very, like I said, it's very scary to be in the water when the boat's rocking. But what this story tells me is that even when I'm scared, or even when you're scared, God has everything under control because he is all powerful over everything. For example, last week, or depending on when you watch this, last week we had a tropical storm that came up through the area. It started down, way down south of like the Bahamas and stuff, and worked its way up past Florida and hit land, I think somewhere in South Carolina or North Carolina. I'm not sure, but it was Hurricane Isaias. I think that's how you say it. I don't know. It's one of the weirdest hurricane names I've ever heard. And I've heard a lot of them. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. And we had a lot of rain, and I know just east of us they had some tornadoes and stuff, and some power outages. God was in control of that hurricane. And he is all powerful, and he directed that hurricane. And the hurricanes have a lot of wind, a lot of rain, but you know what? If he wanted to tell it to go back out to sea, it would. And so just like in this story here, God made the choice to just calm the sea. And so that way the disciples wouldn't be scared anymore. So, what this story tells me is that since I believe in God and follow him, it should give me comfort. It does give me comfort, and it should give you comfort that if there's something that I'm scared about or afraid of or whatever, I can turn to him and ask for help. And I'll know that he's in control of it. So hopefully you understand that, and it's a pretty simple story, but it's a very impactful and powerful story because it shows that God can even control nature, control wind, control the waves, and he can control everything about our life. So, as with all of these stories, if you have any questions about it, feel free to ask your parents, talk to them about it, or reach out to me somehow and we can help you out. But I did last week. I didn't have anybody reach out, but I told you that someone did want to speak. So I got a chance to talk with Miss Page, and most of you know Miss Page. She wanted to say hello through the video to everybody else. So I tell you what, Miss Page is an interesting lady. I found out a lot of good stuff about Miss Page, and there's some things that she wanted to let you know about her as a kid. Well, one of the things, Miss Page, I know some of you go to the pool, but Miss Page was a pool rat. Not only did she used to swim, but her dad managed the local pool, and that comes with a lot of good perks. Miss Page ran the concession stand. So she was the lady that would make hot dogs and hamburgers and the ice cream sandwiches and all that stuff. And you know what she told me? She said she won an award one year for the best pool hot dog in the country. Well, if you don't believe that, believe this. I know many of you know the name Michael Phelps. Well, Michael Phelps, per Miss Page, came to her pool one time to practice. And she fed him a hot dog. And she's convinced that that hot dog that she fed him allowed him to be the most decorated Olympian of all times. And if you don't know who Michael Phelps is, that's him. So Miss Page, good job on the hot dogs. But, I also asked Miss Page, I said, hey, Miss Page, I noticed that when you're in church, you like to crochet. What's up with that? And so this is actually pretty cool. I figured I'd share this with everybody. So a lot of you have probably heard of something that some people in our church are involved with called Kairos. Well, she's involved with Kairos. And what Kairos is a ministry for people that are in prison. And so what Miss Page is crocheting during the service is a prayer shawl for people that are in jail. And what a prayer shawl is it's just something, it's just a blanket or, just a piece of cloth made out of yarn that is used for people in prison to remember that there are people that have prayed for them. So Miss Page and some other people that, other people from other churches, they crochet and they knit these prayer shawls. And before they give them to someone that's in prison, they pray for that person. And once the person has the blanket, it's just meant to be a reminder that, hey, somebody prayed for me and gave me this blanket or prayer shawl. So I thought that was kind of neat. But sometimes I can be a pretty observant person. And I said, well, Miss Page, I noticed that on the days that Mr. Scott preaches, you have more yarn than when Pastor Brian or Mr. John preach. And she says, yeah, Mr. Clayton, you're right. And I said, well, why is that? And she goes, well, sometimes I bring the crochet to help me focus and pay attention. And when Mr. Scott preaches, I need a little bit more yarn to help me stay awake. I said, should I put that in the video? She goes, I think it's all right. So if you see Mr. Scott preaching, take a look at Miss Page. She's got extra yarn on those days. And actually, speaking of Mr. Scott, did you know Mr. Scott is bilingual? I'm teaching you a lot of good words today. Bilingual means he can speak more than one language. Now, I have never met anyone that can speak the language that Mr. Scott speaks, in addition to English. Did you know that Mr. Scott can speak goat? I didn't believe it until I saw it, but Mr. Scott's having a conversation with that goat. and that goat knows every single word he's saying. So anyway, oh, sorry, I'm a little distracted. Back to Miss Page. So I asked Miss Page if there was anything, any verse or anything she'd like me to relay to the kids. And she said a verse that she always thinks about all the time is Colossians 3:23 and 24. So I wanted to read those to you. It's a very, very good verse for you to know. And it's, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. So what that verse means is that whatever you do in life, whether it's school or helping out your parents, or when you get older, a job that you might have, do it with all of your heart. Because the job of doing work, or the purpose of doing work, or doing something, is not for ourselves. It's to please God. And if you've been listening to Pastor Brian the past several weeks, so we've been going through Judges, we are to glorify God. And we can do that one way through the things that we do. School, sports, playing an instrument, jobs as you get older. So I thought that was a great verse for Miss Page to share. So I wanted to relay that along to everybody else. So before we wrap this up, I just want to give you the verse for next week, because there will be a verse for next week that I would like you to work on if you have time with your family. And that is John 15:21. So I'll go ahead and read that. But all these things they will do to you on account of my name, because they do not know him who sent me. So take a few days this week and work on that with your family, so that way when we post the video next week, you'll be able to say it with whoever decides to say it. So I appreciate the time. As always, make sure you give your dad a fist bump, tell your mom you love her, and we'll see you next week.